What's the biggest bullet you've ever dodged? Sold my bar and grill business in August 2019. Sold my 3 restaurants in February 2020, for way more than they were worth. Now 2 have closed. I was a teen driver not paying attention at an intersection at the crest of a hill with low visibility when the light turned green. The car behind me honked, and just as I was about to go, a truck barreled through the red light on the perpendicular road at decidedly ludicrous speed. If I had been paying attention and gone when the light turned green, I very likely would have been T-boned to death. Closest call I've ever had. Years ago I was on a first meet for an internet date. We met at a bar and the bartender carded us. Even though we were both older, they were doing stings in the area, so he was carding every single person. Handed mine right over, but my date was an ass about it. The bartender checked mine and handed it back to me. He checked his, and rather than handing it back to him, he placed it on the bar right in front of me. It had the sexual offender stamp on it. The guy picked it up, looked at the bartender, looked at me, and then got up and walked out. I immediately Googled him. He was on the registry and had been in prison for rape. Lesson learned. Always Google. The bartender and I are still friends. Grandma got a flat tire, pulled over. As she was on the side fixing the tire, her car was hit and totaled. Right from her hands. She was okay. I was working in an amusement park during college summers. I used to come home from college on a Friday afternoon and usually pick up a Friday shift as well as a full weekend. During the month that the park was only open on weekends, I was a manager at my attraction. One particular Friday, I got home and was too exhausted to do a Friday night shift, so I bagged it and decided to just work the Saturday, Sunday and be back at school on Monday. I got a call from a good friend and co-worker telling me that our attraction was in flames, there were casualties, and a couple of my friends and co-workers were missing. 7 people lost their lives. My co-worker, assistant manager, went back in and pulled people out to safety. He was okay. I was in shock for a few days. Had I done what I usually do, I would have been there in charge, and I know I would have gone in to help. It could have been an entirely different situation. So yeah, I dodged a bullet, but a devastating event happened. I'll never know. I matched with a guy on Tinder who played for the Atlanta Falcons. He was really charming and seemed nice. He asked me to fly down to Atlantic City for Memorial Day weekend, said he would pay for everything, airfare, hotel, food, etc., but I had never met him before and he refused to give me his phone number. I was uncomfortable flying to meet a stranger, so I told him no. 2 weeks later he was on the news for kicking and killing his girlfriend's dog. In 2005, my friend and I evacuated New Orleans 2 days before Hurricane Katrina and drove to Mississippi with the little money we had. We were trying to decide on where to stay for the night, and it was between a mid-range hotel or the really cheap motel. Decided to spend a little more for the hotel. During the night the eye of the storm came through Mississippi and flattened the roof of the motel we decided against. I was subletting an apartment in college and got zapped by the electric stove. Gave notice immediately and moved out with very clear reasons why I was moving out. The building burnt a few weeks later. I used to roller skate as a kid outside my house down a hill and never wore any kind of protection. Suddenly one day before I go out, my older brother tells me I can't leave unless I put on a helmet, which is weird since he's never cared before. Anyways, I do it, and that day, for the first time ever, I fell and landed on the back of my head so hard that the helmet cracked. That crack would have probably been my skull had I not wore it. I got on an intercity bus and almost sat in the middle, but moved and sat at the back. The bus later collided with a truck and got opened up like a tin can. If I had sat where I originally intended, I would have been killed. I was late to my bus, and instead of running to catch it I decided to miss it, and it was later hit by a speeding truck. Caught the one behind it, and later saw the aftermath. 2 people died. My ex-girlfriend moved out of my house a day before the first lockdown in Spain. She previously pulled a knife on me. I had 2 job offers in different states at the same time. The one I didn't take was offering more money, but I just didn't gel with the guy who would be my boss and really liked the guy who would be my boss at the lower offer. The better offer was in a state I had always wanted to live in, for a company I admired, but something felt off, so I went with the lower offer. I ended up meeting my wife in the city of the lower offer. Meanwhile, the company that had given me the higher offer abruptly closed and laid off their entire staff with no severance, so if I had taken that I would have been stuck on the other side of the country with no job and no money. My first ever boyfriend dated me when I was 14 and he was 16. We only dated for 1 week before he took me into the woods and forced me to kiss him. I started to feel icky and broke it off that same day. 5 years later I found out that he was now in prison for raping 2 14-year-old girls. Once at a bar a woman was surprisingly into me as we danced. If I had had more confidence back then I definitely could have taken her home. In the end, one of my karaoke buddies ended up with her instead and got caught by her husband that night. I knew a guy that got stabbed by the husband after he went home with a woman. Apparently she liked seeing the husband go crazy on the dude she brought home. I moved a dresser into the basement at my mom's house before I moved out. I lost my grip and fell down almost an entire flight of stairs against the solid cinder block wall, the dresser right behind. Somehow I managed to walk away unharmed. It was unlikely to kill me, but I'm still surprised I walked away without being hurt or breaking something.